Having previously spoken on part one of the state parks of southern New Jersey, on those near the northern edge of the Pine Lands, as well as some Revolutionary War and historical sites closer to Philadelphia, I will now continue further down into the historic area code of 609 with more Pine Lands and oceanfront state parks. Beginning with Island Beach State Park, which includes a nonprofit called Friends of Island Beach State Park that promotes philanthropy and education within the park. The park is a 10-mile long, undisturbed oceanfront, the longest of its kind in New Jersey, reminiscent of New York's Fire Islands or the Outer Banks of North Carolina. It has 3,003 acres acquired by the state in 1953 from the former estate of Henry Phipps Jr., who had a vacation home here. Today, his former mansion is the summer mansion of the New Jersey governor. It's just one of 4 states that has a summer home for the governor. And it is controversial. Sometimes people talk about turning the governor's summer mansion onto the open market, but that can't happen because this is public property. Perhaps it could become a lodge or a nature center, but for now, this is the governor's summer home. And even when the parks are closed due to budget cuts, the governor can still come here and rest by the ocean, as famously shown by Governor Chris Christie in the early 2000s. The park also has a small cabin in there used by a writer. The name escapes me, but it was a good place to escape from the city to the nature. The park also includes the Sedge Island Marine Conservation Zone near its southern tip, a salt marsh inside Barnegat Bay, and Tice's Shoal, a sandbank that can only be reached by boaters on this longest stretch of undeveloped oceanfront. This is Long Beach State Park on Long Beach Island. On the other side of Barnegat Bay is the Barnegat Lighthouse State Park, one of the smaller state parks. Barnegat Inlet got its name from the Dutch, meaning Inlet of the Breakers, separating Long Beach Island and Barnegat Peninsula. In 1855, the federal government commissioned a lighthouse here. Its designer was George Meade, who later was the victorious general at Gettysburg. Because of erosion, a new lighthouse was built just 4 years later, in 1859. The light was deactivated by the Coast Guard in 1944 and given to the state. 4 years later, Barnegat City renamed itself Barnegat Light, a small town that would capitalize on the tourism potential of this lighthouse. In 1954, the lens from the lighthouse was returned to Barnegat Light and is on the exhibit at the Barnegat Light Museum. There's also a statue of a lighthouse keeper next to this statue, next to the lighthouse. The area around the lighthouse was dedicated as a state park in 1957. 2008, Friends of Barnegat Lighthouse State Park raised funds to reactivate the lighthouse so it shines again. Penn State Forest, 3,366 acres in 1910, became a state forest located in Burlington County. It's named for Penn Place, an early 19th century settlement. Penn State Forest includes the Bear Hill Swamp towards its southern side, and the Bear Swamp Hill, which stands in the center of the park at 165 feet high, one of the unusual elevations on an otherwise flat coastal plain. The northern portion of the park, also known as the Plains, has stunted pitch pine, scrub oak, and blackjack oak, a miniature forest as a result of wind coming from the ocean. Within the park is also Lake Oswego, which covers 90 acres, developed with picnic tables and bathing facilities, a freshwater beach built in 1942 by the Civilian Conservation Corps, which at the time was segregated. So this was the African-American units of the CCC that developed the freshwater beach at Oswego Lake within this state forest. As World War II began in 1939 in Europe, Penn State Forest was used as a central location for military maneuvers that occurred in southern New Jersey to test the area for military preparedness. The southern Jersey seacoast underwent a fake invasion in May 1941 with 16,000 men participating, as if it were a foreign power attacking the state. There was the imaginary Blue Land, which is New Jersey, Delaware, and eastern Pennsylvania, and Red Land, which is Maryland and western Pennsylvania. The Reds invaded the Blues. 1950s, there was a proposal for a jet port on the site of this forest that would have been an airport bigger than those in New York and Philly. But thankfully, with a movement to preserve nature, in 1978, the Federal Protection of the Pine Lands ended discussion of an airport at this site. Wharton State Forest, even bigger, 122,880 acres acquired by the state in 1954, the largest state forest in New Jersey. Its namesake was Philadelphia industrial Joseph Wharton, who acquired the land here in 1873, purchasing abandoned towns in the Pine Barrens, which eventually grew to 100,000 acres of land. He planned to build dams on the Malika River and redirect the fresh water to Philadelphia, but the plan was blocked by the New Jersey legislature in 1884 with a law blocking the transportation of waters across the state line. The state purchased the lands containing large portions of the Malika River watershed in 1954, designating it as the Wharton State Forest. New Jersey has since expanded the property of the state forest. That includes things such as the Batona Trail that runs through the park, the Batstow Historic Village, Atsion State Historic Site, and a few campgrounds here as well. There's a railroad line running through the park that connects to Hammondtown, a sizable community to the south of the park. But notice on the map there are gray areas within the park. Those are private parcels that have not been acquired as part of the state forest. Within the state forest, there was once a residence called the Atsion Mansion and a cranberry packing facility, as cranberries were a very important part of southern Jersey's food production. The Atsion Mansion has been vacant since 1882, constructed in 1826 by Samuel Richards, the iron master of the Atsion Iron Furnace and Forge, built as a summer residence. This is the Atsion Mansion, used by Richard till his death in 1842. Another curiosity within this park is the Carranza Memorial, where the sign is written in English and Spanish. And this commemorates Emilio Carranza, who crashed his plane here fatally on July 12, 1920, while attempting to fly on a Goodwill flight aboard the Mexico Excelsior from New York to Mexico City. The monument was installed with funds donated by Mexican schoolchildren depicting a fallen eagle of Aztec design. And lots of books have been written about the pine lands of New Jersey, its industries, its abandoned communities, and its preservationist movement. Within the state park is the Batstow Village. Now, throughout southern New Jersey, Delaware, and southern Pennsylvania, there's a lot of place names that are Swedish origin, because the first colonists here were the Swedish and the colony of New Sweden, which was then conquered by the Dutch and annexed into New Netherlands, which was then conquered by the English in 1664, becoming the colonies of New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. Batstow Historic Village comes from the Swedish term meaning bathing place or sauna, built in 1766, and being the site of an ironworks that supplied the Continental Army during the Revolution. But by the 1840s, it went into a decline and was then bought by Joseph Wharton as his vacation home and farmland. Later in 1954, becoming part of the larger Wharton State Forests. This is Batstow Village. And again, next to the Atsion Mansion is the Atsion Lake, a reservoir that includes a freshwater beach. The next one is the Bass River State Forest. 23,523 acres acquired by the state in 1905. It was the first state forest in New Jersey. Within the state forest is a 67-acre Lake Apsagami that has a freshwater beach. And within the park is also the Batona Trail, you can see marked in pink on the map. The Batona Trail connects to the Brendan T. Burns State Forest and the Wharton State Forest. Batona is an acronym meaning back to nature. This trail mapped in 1961, so a walkable way to get through the state within these pine barrens of southern New Jersey. For the part 3 of the video on the parks of southern New Jersey, I will speak about the parks along the Delaware River, including historical fortresses, more nature preserves, oceanfront parks, and the parks of Cape May, that appendage at the bottom of New Jersey that is